Toombs, Van Reese, Welch, and Withers. None of y'all responded, but there is a quorum of us here. Come on, get it together, y'all. It's a rainy day. All right, we have one change to the consent agenda. Let's see here. Let me find them. We have more than one change. Item 7, which is BL 2021-878. That's going to be put onto consent. We have 879. That is going to be deferred at the request of the district sponsor. They'll be deferred one meeting. Is that correct? I think so. And then item 17, which is 2021-856, will be put on consent. I apologize to Vice Chair Withers. I was thinking he had an amendment coming but it was already substituted. So we are good there. And so I'm going to run through the items for consent, and then we'll have story time with Kathleen. So right now we've got item 1 to defer one meeting, item 2 defer one meeting, item 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They are all on consent to approve. Item 8 is to defer one meeting. Item 9, 10, 11, 12 are all on consent to approve. 13, I'm deferring one meeting because I need to talk to Water about it later. And then we have item 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 with its substitute, 20, all on consent to be approved, and then 21 and 22 are on consent to defer 2 meetings. Is there anything that needs to be changed on how I just read that? Okay, seeing none and hearing none, I'm going to get started. And Councilman Withers, if you would read along with me so you'll have these memorized by the time you become chair. Item number 1, BL 2021-654 by Rosenberg. Changes from RM2 to RS40, property located at 6000 River Valley Drive at the southeast corner of River Valley Drive and Newsom Station Road, located within a planned unit development overlay, 58.48 acres, all of which is described therein, along with its companion, BL 2021-655 by Rosenberg. It cancels a portion of the Riverwalk Planned Unit Development District located at 6000 River Valley Drive at the southeast corner of River Valley Drive and Newsom Station, 58.48 acres, approved for 61 multifamily dwelling units, all of which is described therein. Those are going to be deferred one meeting yet again. Item number 3, BL 2021-873 by Young and others. It authorizes the acquisition of certain right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights by negotiation or condemnation for use in public projects for purposes of the Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure, project number 2017B001 Licton Pike Bridge Replacement, on consent to be approved. Item number 4 is BL 2021-874 by O'Connell and his friends, and it authorizes the conditional abandonment of a portion of Alley 371, approving the acquisition of an interest in certain real property and improvements thereon comprising a new alley, and the granting of an easement above that the new alley in connection with the development of a project in Nashville. Anybody else understand what we're doing with that one? That's a little complicated. So that is on consent to be approved by Councilman O'Connell. Item number 5 is BL 2021-875 by Toombs and others, and it just simply abandons a portion of Lincoln right-of-way from McKinley Street to alley number 1024. On consent to be approved. Item number 6, BL 2021-876 by Sledge and others. It abandons alley number 442 and an unnumbered alley right-of-way an easement between 17th Avenue South and 18th Avenue South. On consent to be approved. Item number 7 is BL 2021-878, and it has been signed on by Council Lady Lee. It approves a participation agreement between the Metro Department of Water and Sewage Services and Regent Homes LLC to provide public sewer service improvements for Region's proposed development as well as other existing properties in the area. There's a letter to approve, and that is on consent. Item number 8 is BL 2021-879 by Toombs and others. It is going to be deferred one meeting at the request of the District Council member, Council Lady Henderson. It approves an agreement between the Department of Water and Sewer Services and Piedmont Natural Gas for the shared use of Metro Water Services Access Drive. Taking us to item number 9, which is BL 2021-880 by Van Rees and others. It accepts new sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for 2 properties located at 1101 Chadwell Drive and Chadwell Drive unnumbered. That is on consent to be approved. Item number 10 is BL 2021-881 by Bradford and Friends, and it abandons an existing water main and easements to relocate existing fire hydrant assemblies and to accept new water main and easements for properties located 1 Terminal Drive, also known as B&A Garage B Phase 1, on consent to be approved. Item number 11 is BL 2021-882 by Hancock and others. It accepts new sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for properties located on Rio Vista Drive. That's on consent to be approved. Item number 12 is BL 2021-883 by Sledge and others. It accepts new sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes for properties located on 2176B Carson Street. That's consent to be approved. Item number 13 is BL 2021-884 by myself, and it abandons an existing sanitary sewer main, sanitary sewer manhole, and easements, and to accept new sanitary sewer main, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for properties located at 4005 Utah Avenue. And I'm deferring that one meeting. Bills on third reading takes us to item 15, BL 2021-840 by Taylor. It changes from RS5 to R6A zoning on properties located at 706 26th Avenue North, approximately 175 feet north of Clifton Avenue, 0.22 acres. We have a letter on that one for approval. Taking us to item 16, BL 2021-855 by Benedict. It applies a contextual overlay district to various properties located along a portion of Preston Drive, Sheridan Road, and Hardwood Drive, approximately 200 feet south of Porter Drive, zoned R10. It's 19.47 acres. Taking us to item number 17, which is BL 2021-856 by Withers. And again, this is added to consent because I had gotten it confused that he needed an amendment, but he's all set. So what this does is it applies a contextual overlay district to various properties located among approximately 150 feet south of Eastland Avenue and 150 feet north of Fortland Drive along Brittany Court, Brittany Drive, and Barclay Drive, zoned R10, 30.48 acres. Item number 18 is brought to us by Councilman Swope, and it's BL 2021-858. Changes from SPMU to R15 zoning for properties located at 401 Kinhawk Drive at the southwest corner of Kinhawk Drive and Nolansville Pike, 0.39 acres. Item number 19 is BL 2021-860, brought to us by Council Lady Sepulveda, and it changes from CS to MULA zoning for various properties located along Largo Drive, Wallace Road, and Linbar Drive at the southeast corner of Linbar Drive and Harding Place, 15.78 acres. That has a proposed substitute that is traveling with it on consent. Item number 20 is BL 2021-861 by Councilman Taylor. It changes from RS5 to R6A zoning For property located along or at Booker Street unnumbered, approximately 410 feet east of 25th Avenue North. Hold on. I gotta sneeze. I think I'm good. Sorry. Let's see here. It is 0.22 acres. Item number 21 is BL 2021-862. Whew, I'm sorry, I'm really fighting a sneeze. Give me a second. Allergies year-round now. Okay, so this one's it's on consent to defer 2 meetings. It changes from IR to SP zoning for property located at 1212, 1300, 1302, 1304 Herman Street and Herman Street unnumbered, and a portion of 907 12th Avenue North at the northeast corner of Herman Street and 12th Avenue North. It's 1.79 acres, and it's to permit up to 250 multifamily residential units. That's on consent to defer 2 meetings. Also on consent to defer 2 meetings is BL 2021-863, also brought to us by Councilman O'Connell, changing from IR to SP zoning for property located at 1301 Herman Street at the southwest corner of Herman Street and 12th Avenue North, 2.11 acres to permit a mixed-use development, 2.11 acres. On consent. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you. For those last 2 items, items 21 and 22, I know there's been a lot of discussion about how and whether these need to track, but if we could just leave those on consent until we get just a little bit more legal clarification about that. If we can approve them on 3rd tomorrow, that would be my preference.
Okay, I assume, did this come in, was this your request to defer 2 meetings?
No, I think it was the default assumption. We thought just the public hearing needed to go, and I think it was probably the default to have these tracked like most of the other ones did. So planning, or possibly Matthew can speak to that.
Yeah, who wants to take it? You want Hannah to do it? Hannah, you should be on. Let me turn you off and on.
Okay.
Try it again.
Okay. And so just to clarify, the question was, why is the recommendation to defer 2 meetings? That's because there was recent state law regarding building materials. These 2 bills both include a building material restriction, and in order to track with the bills that would approve the actual building material restriction, which is required by state law, a separate vote on the construction materials, to pass these on 3rd reading tomorrow night would take them out of compliance with the state law. You'd be passing a building material restriction without having a separate vote on it.
So I think the question really is, can you secure the entitlements even if that compliance is lacking? So that's something I don't know the answer to, and Hannah might.
Can you secure the entitlements?
Right, like the zoning, the underlying land use policy, I think, is distinct from the materiality, and I'm pretty sure, from my understanding of the project, the applicant isn't relying on any of the materiality elements of the bill, and so I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Alex, I've turned the mic's on over there, if you don't mind.
Sure. I guess the issue is there also going to be a separate materials bill that's coming down the pike?
Yes.
Okay, hopefully that would, once that's passed, that would bring everything into compliance. But I agree with council's opinion that right now the bill is technically out of compliance with state law.
So I see. So I guess then the question would be, what would the implication be if they, either initiated the next step, like going to seek permits or whatever, within that window of non-compliance? Could they face some kind of, state review of some kind?
I think it would just be more that they might, if they're looking for if they're looking for permits related to it, that they would probably defer at the codes level to let the other bill catch up to it.
I see. So basically the permit issuance process would say, hey, we're trying to be compliant with state law in our permit issuance, and therefore there's really no advantage to moving this ahead.
That's I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you. I guess if the committee would maybe let this proceed on so that we could potentially pass it tomorrow, I think I might discuss between tonight and the floor with both the applicant and legal counsel. So I guess I'd still like to either keep this on consent or at least allow the committee to allow for that. If we need to pull it off the consent agenda and look at it as an action to move forward, that's fine with me. But I think my sense is that the applicant is maybe not, thinks the lack of compliance there may not be materially affect them. But if permit issuance changes that in their opinion, we can work that out. So I guess, Madam Chair, if we could either restore these to consent to approve, or if we want to have committee action on them, that's fine. But I don't want to defer them 2 meetings in committee if we can avoid it.
Okay, so it was a staff recommendation to defer them for 2 meetings, from what I'm gathering, so they can catch up with the other bill. I guess to make sure I'm understanding the situation right, these other bills have to catch up because of state law. And to Councilman O'Connell's point at our last meeting, I have requested that we are briefed on all of this. I had hoped to tack it on today. The departments are meeting, and so we've got to kind of wait for them to do that this week, and then we'll have a meeting more about it. But so I guess answer me this is us passing this tonight and them starting the permit process. His other bills are already filed and will catch up. Is that a correct statement?
So the bill is the other bills I view as dependent on these bills. So they work in tandem. The state law says that you cannot pass a building materials restriction unless you do it by separate vote. This would not provide for that separate vote, so it would be out of compliance with the state law.
Okay. So let's do this. We've already started a discussion on them. I want to table that. Councilman O'Connell, let's just take these off consent for
Perfect.
now.
That's fine.
And then discuss it.
Yep.
And then the committee can move forward.
Yeah, we'll seek the will of the committee on these 2 items, and that's fine.
Okay, so item 21 and item 22 are taken off consent, and we will address them separately. So with that, that brings us to the end of our consent agenda. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor? Any against? All right, with that, the consent agenda has passed. And that takes us to item 14, bills on third reading, I believe. Did I skip any?
No.
Okay. BL 2021-811 by Roberts. Changes from R6 to RM9 for properties located at 5607, 5607B, 5609, and 5611 Morrow Road, approximately 60 feet southeast of 57th Avenue North, 2.46 acres. Do I have a motion? Motion and second. Ms. Milligan, can you review the planning slides? I know you have to read them to us because we don't have slide capability.
Sure. This was a request to rezone to permit multifamily residential. The land use policy is neighborhood maintenance. There is zoning across the street that is commercial. The Planning Commission recommended disapproval of the request, given some concerns in regards to the area of floodplain that was on the site, as well as flooding in the area, potential flooding in the area.
Thank you. Matthew, can you go over our legislative history that's gotten us here?
Sure. So this was disapproved by the Planning Commission on May 27th. On July 6th, it passed first reading at council. On August 3rd, it passed second reading at council and had its public hearing. And then on August 17th, it was deferred by rule at the Planning and Zoning Committee, and then deferred by rule at the council meeting. On September 7th, it was deferred after deliberation at the Planning and Zoning Committee and then deferred again at council.
Okay. All right, with that, questions, discussion? Can y'all press your buttons out there right now? Oh, okay, I was like, nobody's pressing them. Berkeley, we'll start you, and then sorry, you will have to raise hands. Hold on. You're on.
Thank you. I think this is a question for Ms. Milligan. My understanding is that the number of units changes from 21 to 22, so that doesn't seem like that big a deal. Can you talk about whether single-family homes would definitely not land in the floodplain and multifamily would land in the floodplain? How does the zoning change interact with the floodplain concern?
So any sort of flood regulations are going to be reviewed by stormwater, against the adopted stormwater regulations, regardless of whether it's single or multifamily. The stormwater regulations, if something was single family, it would have to be platted. If something is multifamily, then you can have 3 or more units on a lot without actually being platted of separate lots. So stormwater would review either scenario based on the adopted regulations for the type of development that's being proposed.
Councilor Allen.
I think I'm good. I mean, if I remember right, there wasn't anyone speaking against this at the public hearing, but it's been a while, so I may be wrong about that. So, and I think the concern was about stormwater, so I just want to understand how that interacts with it, so I appreciate the explanation.
Councilman Cash, you're on.
Thank you. Ms. Milligan, so my recollection of prior discussion is that it was, that planning staff recommended this. Is that correct?
Planning staff recommended approval, but the planning commission recommended disapproval.
Right, but staff recommended approval. And so, and sometimes when staff recommends approval, there are conditions stipulated. Were there any conditions stipulated, on that planning staff recommendation?
I'm going to speak generally in regards to straight zone changes, which this would be a straight zone change from R6 to RM9. It is not standard to have, or I should say, it's very rare to have conditions placed on a straight zone change.
Okay.
Every once in a while, there will be some primarily related to access, but it's pretty rare to have conditions related to straight zone changes.
Okay, and when the planning staff report comes out with their recommendation, with the review and recommendations, don't they also have like comments or recommendations or feedback from other departments?
All other departments are given all of the applications to review. However, again, for straight zone changes, sometimes it is a bit different than with an SP where you would have a plan or something. And so, for instance, you would see in the report that's published for this one, which is in your P&Z packet, is the same report that was provided to the Planning Commission, you would see a condition or a note from traffic and parking that a traffic study may be required at the time of development. So essentially, they're just giving a standard sort of comment to say there's another review that would happen at the building permit level. And so with something like stormwater, it may be that it would be reviewed at a later date. So we certainly give these to all of the agencies, but the agency review on a straight zone change like this may be different than on something that has a plan.
Okay, and stormwater was what I was really curious about. So there was no, and I get that it may not be standard for it to be there, but there was no recommendation or condition suggested by stormwater. Is that right?
I believe their recommendation was not applicable, and so we would not necessarily include that in the staff report.
Okay.
But for straight zone changes, typically they would have a recommendation of not applicable.
We've been given a map, a diagram, and I just want to make sure I understand it. And I think Mr. Palco has a short comment on here. I guess I'm just trying to, so the floodplain area is the darkest color on this diagram? Does everybody know what I'm talking about with diagram? Like the map with the, none of the building envelope is in the 100-year floodplain or floodway is what I'm talking about. And so it's that dark area, the darkest area that is the floodplain that we're talking about. And then what are the lighter areas above that? Do we know? Like not the white, but the like shaded. Because I'm not sure who I'm asking. This was provided by Councilmember Roberts, correct? Can you answer, what are the other shaded areas?
Is that something that was distributed to everyone? So is this something that everybody has on their desk to look at the same time? It was not on my desk and not handed to me, shockingly. Councilor Roberts, you can attempt to answer this, and then we can check with stormwater too. No, it was not on my desk. That's what I went and checked. Oh, it is blinking red that we have too many microphones on. Hold on. You should
So
be
I
on.
think what Tom Pelko was trying to say is that is the 1% chance of it flooding in the 100-year floodplain, and it's only at the end of Morrow on 63rd. This is in the 5600 block. So none of the houses that are getting built are in the floodplain or in the floodway, which I think was a lot of the discussion at the Planning Commission. I think it was said that it floods heavily and cars are stalled out all the time, and that's just not true.
Councilman Cash?
Yeah, so I guess my question was, I appreciate that, but I guess my question was, on this diagram, the darkest shaded area is the floodplain, and then I'm now guessing that the area above that that's shaded but not as dark is the floodway. Is that correct?
Do we have, Jim, could you come up and address that? I will tell y'all, none of this was presented at the Planning Commission. Oh, I've got a, what is that called? Okay. You should be good back there, Jim.
Okay, wow, that was loud. Jim Snyder, Metro Water. So I don't see it in front of me, but typically what you're going to see is that darker is going to be the 100-year floodplain, and then that lighter on the outside fringe of that is the 500-year floodplain. So if 100-year floodplain is a 1% chance of flooding in a year, then if I did my math quickly, a 500-year would be 0.2% chance of a flood. So it's the 500-year floodplain. And if you can imagine, the floodway is that main body of water, and it is located within, it's also shown within that, oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Floodplain, 500, okay. Okay, now that I have a map in front of me. So that darker is the 100-year floodplain. The next hatching that you see is the 500-year floodplain.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
So one of the other questions, now that I can actually see a site plan, again, not submitted to planning, one of the concerns was this parcel, Lisa, and I can give this back to you if y'all don't have it down there, was the access to this parcel that's not part of the development. Can you speak to that? In the black and white version, it's hard to see how they still have access. Wait. Planning, okay.
So there is a property to the south that currently has a platted access easement that goes through the two properties that are immediately sort of, there's three properties existing right now that are stacked on top of each other. And the southernmost property that backs up to the floodway has an access easement through the other two. Now, of course, we would not be reviewing this plan, but if this were to come through, they would likely have to amend the plat to clear up those access issues. There is a platted access easement right now.
So is that something, so is there going to be an easement issue if that's not part of the plat?
Well, this isn't a plat, and so there is a platted access easement, and they couldn't build something that would be in conflict with that access easement without amending the plat, which would require the owner of that property to be involved in as well. So there are ways in which you can modify access easements. So I can only speak to what sort of is on the ground today, and right now there is a platted access easement.
But is it in conflict with what
I haven't.
you can't tell? Because y'all haven't reviewed that either.
It because we wouldn't be reviewing this anyway, so I haven't reviewed it against this, but I can tell you that there is currently an access easement.
Okay. All right, so those were some of the questions that, that came up at the Planning Commission, was because we did not have any of this information. It was just a straight rezone, and so we had questions about that parcel and then about stormwater. So it is helpful that this information is here, would have been helpful at the Planning Commission. Any other questions or discussion? Emily? Sean? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. My question, and I believe I'm understanding this correctly because I follow a lot of these cases where there's like maybe issues with, setbacks or stormwater or whatever through the permit issuance process, and have to interact with a lot of departmental review staffers in that process. So under planning table, either under the existing entitlements that are there now or under these new entitlements, if I went to pull a building permit, that permit is going to be reviewed by stormwater, and they're going to check my plans against whatever information they have about this area and how stormwater flows through that property. Is that correct?
Do you want stormwater to answer that? Yeah. Jim?
I'm happy to repeat that as well.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, so with this particular property, if let's say I purchased it with the existing entitlements or with these proposed entitlements, and I went to codes to get a building permit, that building permit is going to need to be reviewed by development services, by stormwater for compliance with this. And let's say if I had houses drawn up within what y'all considered to not be a safe area to build, you would reject that permit and it would not be issued until I submitted a plan that did not conflict with stormwater requirements. Is that fair to say? Is that accurate?
I think that's fair to say, and just understand that, there's going to be multiple levels of review for that as well. So, at a development level, but then also at a lot level. If there's some critical sites, then those will be identified as well.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't know why we got rid of the glass thingies and this is still happening. I don't know why, but
I think it's that back microphone. I don't think it's us up here.
Perhaps, but anyway, that satisfies my question, and I'm comfortable moving forward with this, knowing that it'll have that level of departmental review before any building permits are issued related to stormwater and other issues. Thank you.
Emily, did you?
Thank you. Hey, look at there. And no feedback. Imagine that. Me, no feedback.
Fairy dust.
Ha ha ha. For me, as I look at this, the first thing that stands out to me is the first thing that as a district council member stands out to me, which is a letter of support from the neighborhood. And so it sounds to me like maybe new information has been given. I think as all of us work on zoning changes as we go through the process, our residents give us new information, or departments give us new information, and it looks and sounds to me like new information has been given both to you, Chair, and perhaps something that could have been in front of the Planning Commission. And so those things happen as we come along. New information is gathered, new information is presented, and I think to my colleague's questions a moment ago, none of this will go forward without the proper permitting. And so with that, I hope that, one of the first things I learned when I came to council was somebody who's currently on the body said to me, if a district council member knows what's going on in their district and if their constituents support it, take that into significant consideration. That doesn't mean that it's a, hey, yes, you've got it, check mark, box. But each one of us knows our districts best. And so when we hear when we bring something to the floor that is based on and supported by our neighborhoods, as we've known since, as our colleague has known since May 5th, 2021, according to this letter, if that's the case, then I hope that when I bring something to the floor that I'll get I'll get support based on the support in my neighborhood that I bring to the floor. And so with that in mind, I'm also planning to support this. It sounds to me like any concerns that have been brought forward, it sounds to me have been alleviated. Regardless, I think it's important to always take into consideration the council members, the district council members' position as something comes to the floor. For instance, one of the bills on consent tonight is one that was changed based on constituent engagement. And so when I see that, I think it's very important to take that into consideration as we determine what to do. And so with that, I plan to support. Thank you, Chair.
I think you're correct, Council Lady, is had any of this information been presented to the Planning Commission, it would be a very different situation. But we are just now seeing this after it's gone to the commission. So, and I think it's just a reminder that information should be presented to the commission if you expect them to know about things and take things into consideration. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd actually be interested. I know this has been a much discussed bill for reasons that I'm not entirely clear on, but I'd appreciate hearing from the sponsor maybe on this one.
Council Lady Roberts, you're back on.
Thank you, Councilman O'Connell. Yeah, we've been meeting on this since January of 2021. My neighborhood is in full support. The planning staff, again, was in full support. I'm in full support. My planning and zoning committee, which is a subcommittee of my neighborhood association, is in full support. The reason I think a lot of this wasn't sent possibly to the Planning Commission is this was on consent because they had 0 people calling or emailing or anything. I mean, this was something that felt like everything else, but I also don't understand why things were said at the Planning Commission that it was the houses were built too close together, floods heavily, cars stalled out all the time, not true. There are references to Height Street, and Height Street does flood. That is correct. And it was also mentioned I should have done an SP, but the reason I don't do SPs, it's too hard on the Planning Commission and on codes. They've asked that we don't, and so I don't do an SP unless I have to, and so that's why I did a straight rezone.
Councilman O'Connell, anything else?
Nope, that's got it. Thank you.
Okay, and again, Lisa, how did this get bumped from consent? Oh, wait. Go ahead.
If I recall correctly, there was someone that came in opposition to a meeting and it was deferred, and then they did not come back to the meeting, if I recall correct.
And that's how we handled most cases this summer.
Right. There were a few different ways that we had been handling things when we were virtual. We were doing automatic deferrals. The same thing when we came back in person for a bit. But I believe that we had been notified. I think someone came to the meeting in opposition and then it was deferred. If I recall, I'd have to go back and look at the minutes, but I'm pretty sure that was it.
Okay. And again, I think if any of this information had been presented to the Planning Commission, the conversation would have been very different. Council Lady Benedette.
Call the question.
All right. Any objection to the question? Hearing none, seeing none, we are on a motion to approve. All those in favor? Aye. All those against? Any abstentions? And I am voting against. Question? Oh, I'm sorry. Since there was no objections, I scooted on, but you're right. But no, you're right. We do need a vote on that. I sometimes still get Mason's rules that we use up the hill confused with down here. So with that in mind, reversing back, all those in favor of calling the question? Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, question called. We've already done the motion. We can re-vote on it, but I think we're set. All right, with that, let's take a, what? Did you vote on the vote? Yeah, that was the last one. The vote would be what? Where am I at? 13 people? 14 people? I have 15 people in here? Who came in? Oh, sorry, Council Lady Stiles, I didn't see you back there. So we are at 14-1-0. Okay. All right, so that takes us to Councilman O'Connell's bills. I voted against it with the Planning Commission because I feel that all of that information should have been presented. Yeah, no, you're good. So 21, we're back on item 21 and 22. We did a brief discussion during, at the end of the consent agenda. So just to remind anybody who's not here, what I have requested a meeting for legal staff to go over this state law change and why we're gonna have to start tracking 2 bills at once with these things. So Councilman O'Connell, let's talk about where you are and what you wanna do with these things.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So one, I think we can take these, well, they're technically separate projects. I think it would be appropriate to take them together if people are comfortable with that, because they're adjacent on 2 sides of the street and kind of being done by the same applicant. Having spoken with the applicant in the interim, I have made contact with the woman who spoke with concerns at public hearing, but we have not yet been able to meet. And the applicant is comfortable with a 1-meeting deferral to continue to try to get some engagement around those community concerns. And so at this point, I think where we are is with the applicant and Metro Legal having discussed the ramifications of this, I'd like to move for a 1-meeting deferral.
Councilman, let me clarify. Do you want a 1-meeting deferral in here, or would you rather us pass it through and defer on the floor?
No, I'm going to need, one way or the other, we're going to need at least 1 meeting, so I'd like to get a 1-meeting deferral.
Okay, that works. So let me read these into the record, and we'll take that motion in a second. So we are on BL 2021-862 by O'Connell, and it changes IR to SP zoning for properties located at 1212, 1300, 1302, 1304, Herman Street, and Herman Street unnumbered, and a portion of 907 12th Avenue North at the northeast corner of Herman Street and 12th Avenue North, 1.79 acres, to permit up to 250 multifamily residential units. We're also talking about item number 22, BL 2021-863, changes from IR to SP zoning for property located at 1301 Herman Street at the southeast corner of Herman Street and 12th Avenue North, 2.11 acres, to permit a mixed-use development on 2.11 acres. So the motion is currently to defer both of these 1 meeting instead of 2. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All right, hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor? Any against? Any abstentions? All right, so that's deferred 1 meeting. I think that should take us to the end now. Okay, with that, we are adjourned.